Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code Elevate21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this episode is brought to you by Baba Coffee, smuggling good vibes. Baba roasts their coffee beans each week and only offers the freshest coffee. They have espressos, lattes, cappuccinos, pour over, or drip coffee. You can try their cold brew coffee, nitro cold brew, or bulletproof coffee, and boba milk teas. They also have a wide assortment of delicious food. I would suggest you try the avocado toast, mimosas, wine, or beer. On the weekends, you can check out some great music like the Soto Six and food like Eliza the Shelf and others over the weekend, every Friday and Saturday, beginning at 6 p.m. You can check out everything they got going on Facebook and Instagram at Baba Coffee. Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Brew. I'm actually doing a Out of Bounds series, and like I say, I've been starting to bring on new guests for this specific series. So it's a little mix of sports, life, craziness, whatever's going on right now. So I wanted to do something a little bit different from the Creative Brew, but at the same time, we are at a coffee shop, and I always want to support so Baba Coffee, smuggling good vibes and good coffee here in the Carlsbad, California area, and actually right on State Street. So if you get a chance, swing by, check them out. They actually have live music and food going on tonight. They got a grand opening for their event space up above. So if you listen to this recording or you listen to the live stream, they've got food and music going on. I think starting at 6 o'clock. So I know I will be going to. I got practice today, and then we'll be heading on up here after that after practice. Uh, but without further ado, I want to bring on a great friend of mine and someone that a lot of y'all probably know of, but maybe like I said, he could share his story, and so that's it. We'll get this going. But it's Coach Fox. He's the head coach at Palomar College Wrestling and the main head coach at with USA Beach Wrestling, the senior coach. But he'll share all that, and then yeah, we'll just go from there. So it might be a mix of different things that's going on. I'm one of those where I like talking about different topics or things that's going on. But this is the chance of bringing on someone that's really really big in a rough thing, and someone that a lot of you may not know of, but you need to know of. And so I'll let Coach Buckler share his story and how he got to where he is right now.
All right. Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me. I don't know how I haven't been on here yet. That's probably my fault. I probably said I wouldn't and never have, but no, I'm excited. I think this podcast is great. I think coffee's great, so I'm enjoying the vibe right now. I also like the out of bounds idea. And I think let's get into some out of bounds stuff. Right, wrestling is teeming with a lot of topics that are a little bit on the fringe. Every wrestler I think has stories that are out of bounds, right? So, I got a few that I can share, but yeah, for me, I'm very lucky to be where I am. I grew up in Bakersfield, California. Was a Bakersfield driller. Shout out to the drillers, and was lucky to have a great environment growing up in wrestling. Was a couple times state medalist for Bakersfield High, 3-time All American, and started my college wrestling career at Cal State Bakersfield. Was there for 4 years, got hurt for two of them, so I only got to compete there 2 years there. Uh, and then after that, transferred to Northern Colorado and spent my final 2 years there. I got a medical redshirt and did my graduate studies there. I got my master's degree. And so I studied English in school, which is, for me, it was like the thing that helped me coaching wise that I never really speak to that much was just studying stories and studying literature and poetry and arts. And Coach, I know you're a big creative advocate and you like a lot of that stuff. And for me, I really think, for my coaching career, that was one missing piece of the puzzle that a lot of coaches have is um, not getting into that stuff enough, right? So I wanted to plug my English degree and say that's done a lot for me. Um, After going to Northern Colorado, I moved back to California, came down here to San Diego, and got a fresh start and started working. You know, Stepped away from wrestling for a little bit. Then I started beach wrestling because a dude named Reese Humphrey went on flow wrestling and went down to Brazil and competed at the Beach Wrestling World Series. And I said, that looks freaking awesome. I'm gonna go try that. And so I started training with some high school kids, and then went out there and flew to Ukraine. Or I went to the Beach Nationals first, then qualified for the World Team, flew out to Ukraine, and was able to get second in the World Series. And pretty lucky to do that. And since then, it's kind of given me a different like lease on wrestling. And I had a pretty negative view of wrestling a little bit coming out of college, and it kind of just revamped my love for the sport. And since then, I've just, gone all in on coaching, right? And started at Palomar College, kind of fell in love with the JUCO scene a little bit. It's just such a fun group to coach. Coach, you can probably second me.
Yeah.
It's a mix of so many different crazy things, and I would not rather, I would not want to be anywhere else, not want to coach any other age group for collegiate wrestling, to be honest. And was also lucky about a year and a half ago to put my name in the hat for the head coaching position for USA Beach Wrestling, and that was for the senior level for U20 and U17. And in the past year, it's taken me basically all around the world. Traveled about what 10 different countries. Been very lucky to coach a few world champions. We had our first ever world championship team at the U17 level, world runner ups at the U20 level, and world runner ups at the senior level for winter. So we're right on the cusp of turning a program that has been dead for a decade, probably 2 decades now, and actually turning it into one of our premier programs. And you know, uh, that's what I'm trying to do now is have the foresight to really get us into the Olympic Games. And it starts next year at the Junior Olympics in 2026. That's when we're really going to start, I think, seeing the Olympic push kind of really be realized and come to fruition. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. And it's sort of weird. I mean, like I said, this is I know personally for me, sort of my first year on the JUCO, so like actually coaching JUCO and definitely a little different. It's I mean, but honestly, I think I made it fun. Sort of being with Catholic characters and everyone's personality and background and really trying to figure out how to make it work. Now you had some weird experience. I think for you, I think you tend to have a knack of getting something that was sort of either almost dead or not existent at all, and sort of building it up. What's like what I think that's the big thing for a lot of coaches that's trying to figure out ways to like build a program. They're like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And, they're not. You got some coaches that love the coach, but they're not big on branding or they're not big on like fundraising. Like, how for you? Like, what's been the biggest things as far as like rebuilding programs?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I would say this is what I love to do, right? I love to help people. I love to, be a builder. And, I think that there's multiple types of coaches out there, right? And some just like being in the room and showing technique. And I think it takes a certain type of drive to go out and be like a program building kind of coach. And for me, it's like I enjoy every aspect of it, right? I like posting stuff. I like the marketing aspect. I like going to tournaments and recruiting. I like showing stuff in the room, right? It takes a lot, right? I mean, I think for me, it's almost like you have to be a little bit of like a mental time traveler too, right? You have to have like the foresight of what things need to be in place to have success like 4 years in the future, right? For Palomar, we've had our best year in many years. We got third as a team this year in the state, which was pretty awesome. And I can't take total credit for that, right? We have a lot of amazing people around me. I'm great coaches, but a lot of this like started years ago, right? Right out of COVID, I got hired as a head coach, and I remember getting interviewed for the position and saying, "Hey, in 3 to 4 years, I want to state trophy, right? Like that's my goal." And 5 to 7 years, I want to win a state championship. And okay, that you can't just be empty words when you say that though, right? When I verbalize that and I make that commitment to do that, my mind's already churning with all the different aspects that need to fall into place. And really, it's success breeds success, right? I mean, the better you got to have success right away, and then build on it, and build on it, and build on it. And it's hard to do that, right? But I would say it takes a lot of resilience. There's been a lot of times where it gets you down, right? I mean, a lot of things that people don't even see. Just little day-to-day things that I have to worry about as a head coach, like, man, just like track wrestling stuff and issues with eligibility and making sure people show up on time and having the right things ready to go for each tournament. That kind of stuff I think can wear on a lot of coaches if they're not like ready to take that stuff on. And for me personally, I've just kind of been lucky to have like the experience in my like professional life as well, to where like I know how to deal with a lot of stuff. Like I've worked at startup companies, I've worked at production facilities. Now I manage a group of writers. Like my day job is I work at a medical marketing company, and I was a managing editor. So just all these different skills that I've got from a lot of different places. I don't think I could manage a wrestling team without them, and I'm thankful that I have those experiences. And then the world teams are a whole different story, right? I mean, that's trying to coach a group that's spread out throughout the country, right? So I mean, it's difficult, but I'm just trying to do the best that I can and lead with positivity, really.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I think yeah, a lot of coaches they get sort of concerned, like they want to win, but as far as like the nuts and bolts of like the little things, I mean, I think some of them sort of either try to pass that off or they just not accountable for it. Uh, and I know even at the neutral level, like obviously sometimes resources can be limited. You do what you do what you can. But I think that does force a lot of coaches to be a little bit more creative and resourceful. When normally, hey, maybe if you was at a D1 program and you had all these resources and budgets and like I don't know. I think sometimes you know when when you force yourself to get creative or resourceful, I think for me personally, like that's when like real character shows. And sometimes we could, disguise that around things that, certainly and obviously, we want to be in a bigger platform, but at the same time too, I think, being in these situations makes you better. And then whenever you get to a bigger platform, it's like, not even I mean it's like easy to you, but you've been used to all these situation. Um right now, and it's so weird, even circling back around to this album,
Yeah.
because you took something that was just like when you got there and you said 2020, like what was the program like?
Yeah. So I mean, it was during COVID, right? So like I got hired, and stuff hadn't even like opened back up yet, right? Like there was no practice going on. I don't think they returned really any, maybe like one wrestler returned. But even then, like the couple years before that, they had been really down. I think
Hmm.
zero state medalists returning, zero ranked wrestlers, nothing. Right, there had been nothing going on. That the former coach Rory Barrios, uh, great coach, but he stepped down, and it just kind of there was a lull for a few years there. And I think when I took it over, we had like 10 wrestlers in there. We were ranked dead last. Like I'll never forget. Like I go in there, and I'm a technician. I like showing uh moves, right? I love showing technique. I can get pretty detailed with it, and I'm showing stuff, and I'm like seeing how these wrestlers are doing, and my dad's in there helping me out, and we like look at each other, and we're seeing what the wrestlers are doing, and we're like, hey, we need to slow like way down. Like we need to show like double legs and collar ties and just like basic sprawls, because like we have a group of wrestlers who like barely have done anything, right? We go to the first tournament. It's the Santa Ana tournament, and it's a pretty tough tournament, and we don't know what to expect, right? This is like my first JUCO tournament that I think I've ever been to. I might have gone to like one as a volunteer assistant back in the day, but we go up there, and I think we were on the road by the third round. So our whole team was out by round three, right? And we're like, what? Like, we need to do something different. Like, what is going on? And so it was a wake up call for me, because I'm spoiled. I was from Bakersfield High, right? We were state champs when I was in high school. We were like third in the country. I've always been on teams that have been pretty good, right? And it was just like, what do we do? Right. So really it was just like, okay, we need to start our baseline skills train right away, right? Just hammer these guys with basic wrestling until they're blue in the face, and then also getting them to buy into a winning culture, right? But not in a negative way. Um, like every coach says they want a winning culture, but what does that actually mean, right? And to me, that means inspiration, right? Like, how do I inspire these guys to do the best? And it has to come from them, right? I think, we can get into the out of bounds topic a little bit here. What coaches shouldn't do, what they do.
Might as well we'll throw it out there.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about some toxic wrestling
Yeah.
coaching traits here. I mean, let's start with my philosophy, and my philosophy is because I've had good coaching, and I've had some not so good coaching, and really, I'm like, okay, how do I set up a team culture or like foster a team environment where I'm not just doing the same old thing, right? Like, because honestly, a lot of wrestling tradition, I feel like maybe you probably agree with me. It's like we're just doing things because they've been done a certain way before.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's toxic, right? A lot of it's outdated, and we shouldn't be doing it. I can tell plenty of stories. But bullying people to cut weight all the time, like forcing wrestlers to compete when they're super injured, right? I mean, the list goes on. I just didn't want to coach like that. Also, like shaming people for losing, holding people to like such a high expectation of winning. It's like, I'm here to help, right? I don't feel like I'm better than any of my athletes in any way. I'm just the guy that's trying to help them get there, and it's got to come from them. Like I said, if it's forced on you by a coach, if we're practicing too much to the point where you're just like dead, you can't even move. Like, I would rather I would rather undertrain people than overtrain people and like get in their mind so much that they're frozen, right? Because that's happened to me before. I was blue chip recruit. I was ranked in the country in D1, and some of the coaches I had, I feel like they got my weight. And it's like if they would have just let me go do my things, right? I'm good at wrestling already for a reason. Um, I need coaches to help me with that, right? Like just continue me along that same path that I've been on. Right, so that's how I like to coach. So everybody comes to Palomar because they want to wrestle, right? Because I don't give scholarships out, right? It's a junior college; they're there because they want to be. Okay, how can I take that and put a lightning rod on that, and basically just make that like expand even more? Like you're there, okay? Why are you here? Let's really dig into like what do you want to do in this program, and let's get you there. And that looks different for every single person. And there does have to be like that collective like goal as a team, right? I mean, this year it was get on the state podium,
Yes.
but I feel like I didn't even bring that up that much just because I want every wrestler to wrestle their best match and enjoy what they're doing. And really, at the heart of it, that's what it is. Be inspired. Commit to wrestling your best match, get better, and then understand how it's going to help you in your wrestling career, in your school, and then in your life. And if I can do that with every athlete, or you know, 80% of the athletes who come through the program, then I'm happy.
And it's sort of amazing because you take us over on that was pretty much dead water to something to where now I mean I can't imagine any messages and people coming up to me saying they want to come to help. Uh, so it's so weird like in that in that sort of 4 or 5 year stretch where you build a culture. You got kids that wanna go down there and compete. Yeah, and a lot of these kids, they go on to go, toward the to the higher divisions and wrestle. But now you're starting to create a culture, and a culture that people wanna they wanna come here and wrestle. Um, and it's not something where I can I can be a testament about too, like being there and I can look at having look a guy, like I never you know force anyone to do anything. I would throw little things at them that, they sort of, I think for them it's sort of push to what, to what they could with them, but nothing to where like even when they want to also, I mean, I'm still giving hugs anyway. It doesn't matter. But that was something where I think, as from a coaching standpoint, I know in college I didn't know that. You lost. It was like they tell you something, and then you walk off, and you're sitting on the wall by yourself. I think I learned to be a coach to where like you can come to me, learn all it doesn't matter. Like it's still that's not going to define you as a person or the wrestler. I just want to see how you respond and develop. And I think seeing even some of those matches that some of the kids had with even with Mount Sac, congrats to Mount Sac for winning it. But there was between those regional tournaments to where, guys, a couple of guys got, had some tough matches with Mount Sac to build the state tournament and really should have beat a couple level and in those overtime matches, there were no close matches. I think that was something where, I think that's when they start believing in themselves and then they actually start buying in. And I think all that stuff that culture it starts to, breed more people want to come in like, man, like I see what's going on, go like I want to jump at that. So what do you feel like, and let's not throw out gold or anything, but like
Yeah.
what do you say like for the team like that's coming up season? Like what would you biggest, maybe like best case scenario?
Sure.
Like what would you want to see the team do?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell, right? It's so early. JUCO is so finicky with who's going to be there, who's not. But if we can return all the people that we had, I mean, if we're going to talk about like actual like results type goals, yeah. I mean, I expect to be on the state podium again, and really every year. Is that going to be the reality every year? Like probably not, right? Some year we might get this. I'm hoping we win it eventually.
Yeah.
It's just so hard from one year to the next. But really, it's like, yeah, I'm just more concerned about getting the right wrestlers in there, right? The wrestlers who it makes the most sense for them to be at Palomar. I think to be totally honest, like a lot of high school coaches up and down the state, they do the wrestlers a disservice because they think their wrestlers are good enough to go D1, and it's freaking hard. Right? I mean, that's nothing against these wrestlers. Even like everything has to go right to go D1,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Coach, you and I were both D1 athletes, and we put everything in it, right? We did everything right, like, and it's still so difficult, right? It's so difficult. If you want to be the starter on a D1 team, even if you want to go to like a D2, D3, NAI, like there's a lot of boxes you have to check
Yeah.
that are just like they're hard, right? And a lot of kids aren't ready. I was lucky to have a D1 down the street from my house. I went to Cal State Bakersfield at first, but like I could have gone wherever I wanted, right? I was ranked like third, fourth in the country as a senior, and I chose to stay home because I wasn't ready, right? I mean, if that D1 wasn't down the street from my house, I don't know what I would have done. Might have gone to somewhere else, right? And so I think, you know, there's a lot of situations where a kid probably should try JUCO first and, spend a year there. And then if they're ready, if they have everything ready to go, then transfer, right? Um, there's also a lot of bounce backs at the right? Guy, can't tell you how many guys, I've gotten who have tried to go somewhere else. Things don't work out. They're just not mentally ready. And then they come back. My job and what I like to do is I like to find people who kind of fit that mold. That say they've been in high school for or they've wrestled in high school for 2 to 3 years and they're good. They've gotten a lot better. Maybe they qualify for state or barely miss it, and they keep getting better. They keep loving the sport, but it's almost like they feel like they've ran out of time. That is like the perfect scenario for us. And again, I'm like, I want to get the best athletes that I can, right? But I'm also realistic. Like, it has to be the right fit, right? I don't want to be taking like kids who should be at a D1 and trying to convince them to come to Colorado. It's not necessarily what I want, right? A good example would be like Diego Peraza, right? Our state champ from this year, right? Freestyle specialist, right? He wrestled in high school, I think maybe 1 or 2 years at Chula Vista, but doesn't really have any collegiate experience. Fantastic wrestler, but for him, it's like he's got to learn folk style, and he did. He ended up, winning state for us, and didn't pick didn't pick bottom too much with him, right? But he actually did an excellent job of transitioning into folk style, right? Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's it's weird because I did talk. Yeah, I had the luxury of talking to a lot of those kids that was on the team, and a lot of them come from some different backgrounds. A lot of things, they want to go to the higher levels, and I try to tell them, I'm like, look, there's a certain like mindset you're gonna have to cultivate. Like this is the perfect place to cultivate it. Like I feel like your mindset not to think like you might not be ready for that. It may take a couple of years for you to get everything in place and then go. Some people aren't meant for that. Some people they've been battle tested and they're ready to go to these levels right out of high school. Some people aren't ready for that, and I think the biggest thing probably I'm gonna say probably social media has probably been the worst with the comparison, trying to, compare your talent, your level to someone else entirely. And you're looking at people's highlight reels and everything else. And now you're like, well, I can't do that. Or, I want to be like that. Well, you might not be ready for that. So I think that's another PSA for any, or I say from any athletes that feel like, I want to be an athlete. Well, you might not have the mindset or the work ethic for that yet. You may need to just learn how to, uh, how to, time manage. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things I feel is like you don't want to manage your time. And you're a big athlete. It's probably like nothing's going to give. Either your classes or the sport. One of them's going to give. Um, don't feel like you can have a social life and and be an athlete and do your school. Something good deal. So it's one of those like understanding time management, being a JUCO, being at Palomar, that's probably the best scenario and at least teach you certain skills. Then you can go from there. Yeah, that's my I ain't gonna say a rant, but it's just one of those where I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, let's go for Division One. Like, no, you're not ready for that. It's
Yeah, and I'll add to that, right? I mean, one of the things I like to say the most about JUCO and like the difference between coaching styles, first of all, right? Because the reality is this is a coach-driven sport, and I would say even wrestlers who are talented enough who want to go to like a Division 1, you got to understand like the pressure that these coaches have to win, right? Like they want to win at a level that like they have to win, right? Programs are getting dropped. They do not want to be the coach that has this historic D1 program get dropped. There's pressure from a million different angles on a Division 1 coach, and they have to get the best team that they can out there, and they want to qualify people for the national tournament, right? There's no emphasis. I mean, there's less of an emphasis on development there, right? I know a lot of Division 1 coaches very personally. I've been asked several times to be a D1 coach. I don't want to do it, right? I mean, not at this point, because my coaching philosophy is more based on development, right? And that's what like a Palomar or a Mount Sac can do for you is we see where you are and we try to make you better in every aspect of your life so that you can transfer and understand like okay they expect performance, right? You're there to win and you're there to show up, no questions asked. You should already know how to wrestle by the time you get there, right? They're going to help you with something, but they care a lot more about recruiting the best athlete who's 90%, 95% there, ready to reach their goals.
yeah,
I don't care what you are, right? Like as a JUCO coach, right? We're at the point now where yeah, we're gonna probably have to start turning some people away because we're gonna have 60 people in the room. But at the end of the day, like not everybody's a superstar. Not everybody knows a lot of wrestling when they get to Palomar. That's not really what I care about. I care that you show up, you're inspired, you try to get better. And if you can do that, I mean, you're going to get better in so many different areas of your life, like going to class on time, getting help from the counselors, knowing how to like navigate a school system to get the help that you need. Like a lot of wrestlers have like learning disabilities or ADHD or whatever, right? I mean, there's just so many different things going on. And having a slow start into the college process to be able to like navigate all this stuff is really important, right? And I think again, it's like a lot of these high school coaches, they just see stars in their eyes. And so do the athletes, right? Where, they're like, okay, let me check the box. All right, well, I've sent 20 kids to D1 now. Okay, well, 19 of them came back after 2 months, right? Is that really a win? It's like, no, we want to help these kids be ready to take on life. And, that's what I offer more than anything.
yeah. I think personally, I mean, I think the biggest. Yeah, I told another coach this recently. I was like, I think the biggest testament to someone really being a really good coach is that you have a student or a kid, text or message you 10 years down the road, say, like, hey, thank you for being my coach, and then because I was able to be putting up, I was able to be this, or I was able to just be a good dad, or I was, I'm maybe I'm running some big company or something like that because I was able to be in your program. I mean, like things like that. That's the biggest testament.
Yeah.
Someone can come back and like, hey, listen, this is how I want to give back. But if for a lot of coaches, if you're concerned with just the wins, um, that's not going to be a great investment for you have a lot of those kids. That, they're not they're not going to fall in love with the sport. They fall in love with the winning or losing, and that's it. They're going to fall in love with the actual sport, trying to develop with what they with a lot of those athletes, maybe turning to coaches and being mentors. That's not how how you're going to grow the sport. Uh, I think that's the biggest for me. I think that's the biggest testament. But we just get too too tied up with the win with losses, which I mean is it sucks because that is the name of the game sometimes, but at the same time too, we do want to be concerned with how you develop those athletes not only like on the mats but off the mats and being in an environment to where, I think one of the wrestlers, and I'm not gonna go with his name out, but one of the wrestlers, he came back to me and like, man, it's like I love being at Palomar. Like I feel like I could, like I'm not just another number. I can just come in and just like talk to you about certain things, and I don't feel like I'm just falling in the cracks. I'm just like another, just another number. So I think that's the biggest thing. So if you want to come to Palomar, I'm not gonna say I'm promoting Palomar, but I am. But if you want to come to to a school like that, this we're trying to we're trying to create a culture to where it's family oriented. You can come in and if you got certain issues or you got things you want to develop or work on, then this is the environment for it. And now one winning at the same time. So yeah, that's my that's my little rant on that.
Love that.
So right now, I mean, as far as what else is going on right now? Quick shout out again. I'm gonna throw another shout out. If you hear a lot of background noise, people talking and dogs barking, we are at Father. This is a live episode, so please be warned. There's a lot of little background noises, and I think sometimes that adds something to something of the show. But I just want to give a quick shout out to Bob again. But there is some background noise, so just be mindful of that. Once again, smelling good vibes, good coffee, and they got food and drinks tonight. Actually got an event actually starting. It's actually 4 to 9. They got something going on. Music going on upstairs in the new event, good space. The door grand opening for that, and they'll have food by one of my favorite chefs. A lot of the he was a 2020 Chop Food Network Chop champion. I had her on my Creative Brew podcast, but she'll be doing some of her famous pasta that I'm cooked on. Some of the best pasta ever, homemade. Uh, and I'm a pasta nut, so I like it. So, uh, so quick shout out for Bob and Coffee. So right now we'll keep going around. I know we're still out of bounds, so we're usually on the I love a lot of comics,
Love that.
weird and crazy stuff like that, and I know we were on the trip talking about that. We was taking that ride back from Fresno, and we were chatting about all kinds of crazy stuff. Um, but I mean, right now, I mean, like I'm not big comfort girl, so like
Yeah.
we'll go scenarios like one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite characters, Captain America. But if you had your own, maybe if you were in a comic book universe, or you could be any comic book character, like
Sure.
who would you be?
Man, that's a tough one. I got a lot of favorites. I think Batman was growing up. Batman's always been my favorite. Just because he's a normal dude and he's a rich guy, but he figures out how to play crime with tools and whatnot, using his brain.
Yeah.
And to me, that's always been, he's been my favorite for that reason. You tell me. It's like for me, I think the thing that I wish I had more than anything, especially as like a coach, if we're going to relate it back to the other stuff we're talking about, was like time travel, man. I wish I could manipulate time and space to the point where I could be in two different places at the same time and then be able to go into the future and go back and forth. And maybe like a Doctor Strange or something. I'm also a huge sci-fi nerd, and I actually gave a speech at my old high school not too long ago, and I brought up the novel Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. You ever read that one? And it's a weird one. Kurt Vonnegut's like one of my favorite authors, and there's this alien species in the book where basically like they have the ability to see time differently than we do. And when they look at a human, they see like a caterpillar like figure where they can see like, basically a bunch of cells stacked on like in the front and in the back, and they can literally see the timeline of their whole life going all the way back and all the way forward. All right, so they got me thinking like man, what if you could do that? Like what if you could go, you could, I guess, alternate between your different versions of yourself so you could have a perspective of your whole life. And it's like, man, that's what I try to do as a coach. Right? We were talking about later, like, how can I see far enough into the future to see where we need to go, where we are, and then also recognize like, hey, we've come a long way from where we started. As an athlete, as a coach, I think you have to be able to do that at a high level to be able to keep things into perspective, really as a person, right? Because otherwise you're just reacting to stuff all the time, right?
Yeah.
And you're not thankful for stuff. And to me, that's like that's something that I do every day. And yeah, if I had a superpower, it's like that's what I would want,
Yeah.
right? And like shoot laser beams and stuff like that too. But
Well, maybe that might be a little, maybe a poll for listening on that. What would be your favorite, character, or what kind of character would you be? Yeah, that's a good one. I've always personally, I've always been a Captain America fan. I think more so like the qualities he represents more than anything else. Um, but and it could be, he could say, "Hey, I'm going to be Superman and just have all these
right.
powers." But that does come with responsibility, or maybe, I don't know, maybe no responsibility. Um, but
Uncle Ben said that one, right?
yeah,
Spider Man's uncle. Yeah.
uh, yeah. If you seen, there was a movie called Brightburn that was sort of portrayed almost like an evil Superman.
Oh, I
And
never watched that.
yeah, that one a little crazy. But yeah, I think for me, like having those, like having certain qualities, I would probably say Captain America, but I would love to have something where like I could see or peer through different timelines, and
Oh yeah.
almost like a, if you're a DC Comics fan, I love to watch. Like Watchmen, I put up as one of my favorite graphic novels. But Doctor Manhattan, he was able to peer into all these different scenarios. He saw
Sure.
time differently, and go back to, he can go to the future, to the past, and but yeah, I guess, yeah, being able to see that. I think sometimes maybe at a creative, I glimpse into that a lot. Just saying like, man, like, especially when you're creating. For me personally, like,
Yeah.
you're in that creation mode, when you're creating like characters and worlds and stuff. And always, I think for me, and I know I talked to my wife about it, and she thinks half the time she thinks I'm just like, she's like, whatever, just think I'm crazy sometimes. But this is like where did that actually come from? Yeah, that you get inspiration, but like it's sort of weird because like I think the biggest thing that I've is actually a book that I've been trying to read, but it talked about like your ideal of actually being alive. So
Yeah.
whatever you create, it actually created you.
Sure.
So it's sort of weird where like, all the things that we, visualize or we think about, like those things, maybe it's something in a future future self that's trying to throw a little, breadcrumb, to throw a little thing that is like, hey, this is the way you need to go.
Sure.
I always think about that. It's we always feel like time, for a lot of people think time is, linear. You can get your past, present, future, and now, I mean, if you're big into like quantum theory, I'm not going to throw that out today, but I do research a lot, and the way even a lot of tribes see time, they see it as more circular,
Sure.
where there's patterns and waves. So there's things that move around at a certain point. Uh, Instead of only, at credit. You've got all kinds of things sort of circling around at certain points
Yeah.
in time. Uh,
Circular, right?
yep.
That's what I got there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all representative. So it's one of those where like, you know, perhaps you got a future version of yourself, throwing something back out to your, present or past, and hey, look, like this direction you need to go, or like, hey, maybe good or bad. Like you have the inspiration to do something. Like keep leaning into that. I know it's scary, but lean into it a little bit, see where it goes. I think people always get those inspirations and hunches. Now, what happens, I think we let society sort of like, no, you can't do that, and then we like sort of shy away from it. But I do think people, if you allow it, I think people have those ideals, inspiration, and things that come to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. All that's something. So to stay on, I guess the theme of like the superhero thing, dude, I'm motivated by villains too, right? I don't want to turn into one, and specifically like if we stay on the coaching theme, right? If we're going to talk out of bounds, like there's a lot of villains out there, man. Like, there's a lot of villainous coaches. I've heard stories, I've been, again, I've coached at the world level. I've seen some crazy things. Like, if you really want to talk out of bounds, I can tell a couple stories from that. But, there's a lot of just negative stuff out in the world. And like, I don't want to contribute to it. And I don't want to just follow in the footsteps of coaches who are making things worse for athletes, right? And
Yeah.
there was a quote I heard the other day. I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like following tradition for tradition's sake is giving a vote to the dead, or giving all your votes to the dead. And it's like, do I really want to be like giving my votes to the dead, and so to speak, it means like you're listening to dead people for no reason or dead ideas, right? And you mentioned like the tribe that sees time in a different way or whatever. Like, yeah, that's how I want to think, right? I want to think because it makes sense, not because that's what something's been done before. And I guess it just takes the realization that a lot of people just follow ideology for because it makes sense to them, right? Or they don't question it. And then for me, it's like that's kind of what my get it is just my life, not even just coaching. Like I don't want to follow an ideology just because somebody else says it works, right? I'm like I guess very practical in a lot of ways, and that's what I take into my coaching style. Like if this doesn't make sense, we're not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
I do take a lot of inspiration from like a Penn State, right? I mean, we don't do everything Penn State does, but just the fact that like, hey, let's take a lot of the toxicity out of wrestling culture because it doesn't need to be there. Right? I don't need to pressure kids to do certain things. I don't need to be like a dictator if they show up 2 minutes late. Right? We
Yeah.
play dodgeball for 15 minutes
Yeah.
so that people can come in a little bit late.
Yeah.
I don't want my athletes to hear this and get onto my my strategies here. But like, yeah, I don't want to have to be punishing people for being late. Like I should be motivating you to want to show up on time. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. I had coaches that, if you lost at a high level tournament, and this is D1 stuff, I don't want to get too into it, mention any names, but they tell you sleep on the ground, right? Like, you don't deserve to sleep on a bed tonight. Like that's dehumanizing type stuff.
Yeah.
And again, we're getting out of bounds today. And just a lot of that type of stuff, telling certain athletes because they're not good enough that they're not valuable or that they don't belong on the team. Well, okay, well, if our star athlete gets in trouble, then they're okay. But what value do you add? So you better not get in trouble. It's like you're all valuable. You're all humans, right? And I'm not any better than you. I'm just trying to help you along your journey, right? And it's like for me, dude, I don't even remember what the question was. But,
Comic books and superheroes, but just the way that I think for you, like what power,
Yeah.
what character you would be, or what abilities you would have. But
Yeah.
we do. As I said, it can go with somewhere else completely different. But that's part of it. It's part of the show. So
Well, let me add that. So yeah, I mentioned villains, right? And like, a lot of it is I think that people just can't handle some sort of like power or influence, and that's one thing that we as coaches like everything we do is under a microscope, and it's like every interaction because some wrestlers like you're gonna interact with more. They're more outgoing, right? They're gonna be up in your face. I won't name any names, but our heavyweight from this series, he's a little up in your face. I love him to death. But some athletes you're going to interact with like 10 times a day, and some you're only going to get really a few conversations with throughout the course of a season, and that's just kind of how it goes, right? You can try to talk to them, but they're just not very talkative, right? With a lot of athletes, like you got to understand that like every word that you use matters, right? Like every sentence you use matters, and you want them to interpret what you say in the right way, or else it could go wrong, right? And you don't want to be creating any villains out there either, right? You don't want to say like if you're gonna be harsh on an athlete, they gotta understand why, and they gotta understand like, hey, like I still love you, but you know, like I'm being harsh on you because of this. And really, it's like I'm a parent and I have to do that with my kids, right? Like I can get on them for stuff, but they have to understand at the end of the day, like no, nothing's changed, right? We're still gonna go home and stop on the way, get in and out, whatever, have fun. Like you're still gonna enjoy this, but hey, I'm getting on you because I believe in you. And I feel like a lot of coaches like that doesn't come across all the time, right? I don't know if that's just communication style or what, but no, we don't, like Mr. Incredible from the Incredibles, right? He created that villain, that little kid, because he didn't help him in the right
Yeah.
way. And like, in any like I guess influential position or any position where there's a power dynamic, like we got to be very careful, and we that means coaches, right? I'm calling out every coach in the country, like you guys got to do better, right? You guys got to do better because I'll be totally honest, like I was a little bit ruined after my D1 career, right? Like I was, I wasn't happy, right? I didn't accomplish my goals, and it wasn't just that. It was like I feel like I failed my coaches. I feel like they, not all of them. Like I have really good connections with a lot of my former coaches, but I just don't feel like it was, you know, I guess communicated to me that like I'm still valuable as a person, right? Like I left and I was not equipped to handle life not being a Division All American, right? And it took years for me to get out of that cycle. Right? If you don't place at junior college state, I still love you, and you know what? That was just the cherry on top of what we're trying to do, and at Palomar. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I know. I went through maybe that might be for the bonus content on this episode. But yeah, no, I like to watch small question after my career was out. Like my whole game, my uncle was he was a Christian All American, so like that's my goal. Like I was going to come in and like I want to do well. I want to be All American. That was that was it. And and I just like I said, I didn't make that goal. I was like, oh, Lord, if I was that done, I'm like, well, what do I like? What do I do with life? Uh, and now, yeah, definitely, I'm glad I'm sort of grown out of that. But and done some other things. But at the same time, too, like I want to come back and like that happened to me. Like I don't want that ever happening to another athlete
Yeah.
again. If you come in contact with me, I'm gonna have to answer your something. Or if I don't have the answer, we will find it together. I don't know that ever happening again. So it's one of those where yeah, gladly I didn't turn into a villain. And we definitely don't need any Thanos on the team.
We might have a couple already,
Yeah,
but
but it's so weird because like with JUCO, and even with a lot of kids now, there's different, obviously different personality styles, but I found myself even with a heavyweight, he was definitely one of the more outspoken, but the north of his fault. Uh, and that phase we didn't agree with a lot of stuff, but I didn't really understand where he came from. But anytime that we talked, I think the first thing I told him was, okay, look, take a deep breath, let me give you a hug, and then tell me what's going on. So it's one I was like, I would have never considered combat when I was younger.
yeah.
Now I find myself being a little bit more uh, passionate, having some tough love, but at the same time, just understanding where these kids are coming from. And I think going man, it's sort of allow those kids to be them, uh, and instead of them sort of in fear, like, hey, if you don't win, then you're not the team. Like allowing them to be themselves. And I think we bring someone up like that allows them to be the best wrestler. Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah, I'll add to that real quick. First of all, I want to shout out my beach wrestling world team guys. Especially the ones who are very consistent and show up all the time. Just for some more context, like, uh, I go overseas as the head coach about 5, 6 times a year, for different countries, I guess. And we interact with a lot of like high level, senior level athletes, right? So I just want to add, like, I guess we're talking about junior college a lot, right? But we're going and competing against Olympians, world level participants. We've had people on our team who have wrestled at world championships before, who have been freestyle US team members and whatnot. And we have a two-time world champ on our team. And so whether I've coached them or just interacted with other senior level athletes, like, it's no different, right? I mean, these are still just people, and whether you're way far ahead in your wrestling career or not. I mean, even at the senior level, like, it's so much of a mind screw up there, right? I mean, it's like you're expected to be like at the top of your game, competing at a high level all the time, right? And you know, just being there for them as well. I would say so. We had our best year of history this past year. We had, we went like 3 years without getting a senior medal, like, at all at any event, and now we have like I think close to 20 total in the past like year and a half. And I can't take all the credit for that either, obviously, but I don't think I'm getting in the way of these athletes, right? I think I'm helping them along. We're winning matches later in the season that we were lost previously. We're getting people on the podium, and it's the same formula. It's just being there for them, right? I mean, they're going through a lot. A lot of them have a lot of like deep issues that they just like had it already in their life, and then when they come into college, they're like some D1 athletes, they're gone through a lot, right? And just being there and really just kind of fleshing those things out. Be like, hey, like, if you want to be a world champ like that, so you got to figure that stuff out, man. And I'm here for you to do that, right? And I'm not a psychologist, but like, let's figure this out. And I think that's just what it takes, right? We have to see the whole athlete's journey. Like, it can't be just when they're in the room or in the competition or out on the sand wrestling for you. Like, if you're gonna interact with an athlete, like, more than one event, right? 'Cause sometimes I get wrestlers who go for like one event or whatever. But I have a handful who compete all the time, and it's just like the junior college system where, like, yeah, I'm interacting with them all the time. I'm seeing the growth in each athlete, and I want to see it happen internally, and then hopefully it happens out in the competition area also. Might not, but hey, you give your athlete the best chance to do that. If their heart and their mind and everything is aligned, right? And then I guess the last thing I'll say is like sometimes we got to understand as coaches, like we are not we can't always expect like instant gratification. Right? We preach this to our athletes, and we expect them to like get good the same season, right? Or maybe even like before they leave our school, if they have like a couple years left. Like I didn't really hit my potential till I was done with college, right? Like I got way better after. I'd made huge jumps mentally and technically, like after I was finished in Northern Colorado, and thanks to my head coach Troy Nickerson, did an amazing job, and I only had him for 2 years, and uh, like, coach, you did your job. It just took a little longer for it to take for me, right? And I think that's something that's tough for a lot of coaches is like you see the success and then you don't get credit for it because they didn't do it at your school. A lot of time that's hard, right? But hey, you still did a great thing anyway, and like we need more coaches like that who don't care, right? I want to get you better, regardless of whether you're going to do good here or later.
Yep. Yep, that's a yeah. I think that could be something for another episode because I think that issue with some coaches, mad because their kid goes somewhere else. And, they they want to take credit for the success, and it's like it doesn't matter. I tell a lot of athletes, even with that you found like, look, I was looking across training. Like if you go to another gym and you get better and you end up becoming this, big fighter or UFC, it don't matter to me. I just want to help develop you and get you where you need to go. I think I just some people just want to they want to have the credit for all that. Nothing good or bad about that, but it's just understanding like what are your goals and intentions behind that. But that could be something for another episode. So right now, I mean, before we sign off,
Yeah.
like how can people sort of reach out to you about beach wrestling, about Palomar College, anything that's going on like that, or matter of fact, 'cause I'm gonna keep pushing them. If you're interested in a private clinic or session or anything with Coach Fox, go ahead and hit them up now. But what's the best way of reaching out?
Yeah, a few different ways. I would say go follow me on social media first, coachbox.usa wrestling. That's on Instagram. Okay. If you want to email me, you can go to the Palomar Athletics website. My email is tbox@palomar.edu. I'm always looking for good wrestlers in Palomar. And then if you're a like senior level or U20 level athlete and you think you have what it takes to go wrestle against some of the best in the world, um, email beach@usawrestling.org, and I'll be happy to give you a response if anything and see what we can do for you. I'm excited. We got the Senior Pan American Championships coming up in April, and then following that is the Beach Wrestling World Series event in Mexico. That's following the Senior Freestyle and Greco Pan American Championships. They'll be held in conjunction with that, and that'll be in May. And then also shout out to Palomar Women's Wrestling. We're in our season right now. We're about to hit our second tournament next weekend and get ready to make a run at the state championships in mid-April. So we're getting ready for all that. I got a lot of coaching ahead of me this summer. I have 3 back-to-back seasons. Right, I have the men's wrestling in Palomar, women's wrestling in Palomar, and then I have all the beach wrestling world team stuff coming up in the summer. So I would like to get it out there and do as many clinics as I can. I'm spread pretty thin, but we're gonna make it happen. Definitely in San Diego and Southern California.
Good deal, good deal. Well, this is another new episode of Out of Bounds. So this is in conjunction with Greater Growth. And like I said, thank you to our sponsors with this, Baba Coffee here at Carlsbad, Elevate Coffee Trading that's in Dallas, Texas area, and to Studio Ace Artshop, our partner that's here at Oceanside, California. Get a chance, they actually have a little uh, I wouldn't say raffle, but they have a little big grant on Saturday morning on February 1st. Proceeds, if you go to the art shop there, all the proceeds have to rebuilding their gallery space, which got damaged with some water damage. So get a chance Saturday, go by there, check it out. Other than that, yes, they got another episode. Let's take a chance to connect with Coach Fox on Instagram, on Facebook, and that's it. So it's another episode of this is new. I guess I said another episode of Credit Proof that this is Out of Bounds. And I'm still trying to figure out what the ending tagline is going to be. So it's in beta. We're still figuring that out. But that's what we got. So have a good day.
Out of bounds, 1 foot.
So young and so frail. All I know is hard work, really nothing else. I resort to smoking weed, yo, cause nothing helps. Called to hold me up, told them loot to sample up. We gotta come together now, cause I had enough. The time is now, there'll never be another one. It's the second lap time.